Welcome back to the Life Recreated podcast. And on this segment of conversations, we're all about recreating a narrative around Black men and their mental wellness. My name is Nick Walters, and I'm excited about this episode, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of wisdom to the topic that we're going to be discussing today. And so I have with me today Mr. DJ Atkinson. He is a native of Goldsboro, North Carolina. He's also a graduate of North Carolina A&T with a bachelor degree in social work. He's also has a master's degree from Howard University in social work as well. He obtained his North Carolina social work clinical license, and he's now been a licensed clinical social worker for 12 years. And he's been in the field of social work and mental health for a total of 24 years. Right now, currently, he works at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs in Durham, North Carolina. And I want to say I appreciate that. I'm a veteran. My heart goes out to you serving our. Yes, sir. And right now, he is pursuing a PhD degree in leadership studies with a concentration in organizational leadership and development. And he's residing right now in Raleigh, North Carolina with his lovely bride. He's a husband, been married for 16 years, and he's also a proud father with a 13-year-old son, Mr. AJ. So want to welcome you on the show, DJ. How you doing, man?
Thank you, my brother. It's good to be here. Good to be
Yes,
here.
sir.
Thanks for having me. I am extremely humbled and honored that you invited me to come on here and provide some good information that hopefully will be helpful for someone.
Absolutely, man. So I want to just dive right in because part of the reason that I reached out to you, and we've been having these conversations over the last few months about mental health and our mental wellness. I want to dive into looking at, because when I had my mental health crisis in that season and trying to learn what was going on, when I was looking and I was trying to find a lot of answers when it came to my mental wellness, I did not see a lot of people that look like me. And I see a lot of Black men. I seen Black women. I seen a lot of white men. I seen a lot of white women that were talking about mental health, but I didn't see a lot of Black men really discussing these issues of mental health. It made me curious, what in your life happened that led you on this path to what you do now with social work and mental health?
Wow, that's a good question and a loaded question, but I would say you're absolutely right in that the profession of social work and mental health, there are not a lot of us, even though the number is gradually growing. But for me, I come from a family full of people who are part of helping professions, whether you talk about teachers, nurses, people who assisted taking care of older people in nursing homes, that sort of thing. And I went, when I first went to A&T, I'll go ahead and say this. When I first went to A&T, my goal was to become a physical therapist. So what I did was I majored in biology. And so it took me that very first semester to realize, okay, this is not the path for me, because science was just not my strong suit. It was not interesting to me. But given my background and where I come from, one thing that my mom and dad always instilled in me is to always be there to help others. Be there to help others. And the first thing that came to my mind that I could do as an alternative was social work. And I took a chance. I got a profession and it's very rewarding, but of course, it's not known that this profession is not known to pay an awful lot of money, although it can, depending on the route that you take. But for me, just having the ability to help others get from point A to point B, I learned that I had a pretty good listening ear for people. People always came to me with their issues and their problems. Why are they coming to me, talking to me about these issues? But I felt compelled to, in some way, say something or do something that was going to help that person get better or resolve their issues, resolve their problems, whatever the case. And so it just took off even faster than I thought it would go. I dealt with various different populations over time, and mental health was really the thing that sold me because I was having thoughts about changing professions. So it took me working in foster care to realize that, okay, mental health is real. there are a lot of us that represent the population that were at the time receiving these mental health services, but a lot of the providers didn't look like me. And so I felt like that was an opportunity for me to fill that void and do my part in mental health. And years later, I'm still in it. I'm still enjoying it.
Good. So when you say, so I see what you're saying with that. And when the thing that stuck out to me was what you were saying was that we, you noticed that there was a lot of information and knowledge given to our communities, but it, like you said, they didn't look like us. So I think when I think of what I was going through and just working through that disconnect of getting information from people that can't really understand or really can't grasp like what it's like to be in that type of environment. When you first got into doing this type of work, did you see a lot of that disconnect with a lot of the people that you started working with, where like you're meeting with people and they're like, bro, will you understand where I'm coming from? This person over there, they don't get and they
Oh yeah,
can't understand that. Did you see a lot of that
absolutely.
happening?
Absolutely. On my end, as a provider, as a mental health professional, and there's a Black man across from me or in the same room as I am, for them, it's like a breath of fresh air
Mm.
because they not only see me as DJ Atkinson, LCSW, DJ Atkinson, mental health professional. DJ Atkinson, he looks like my dad, my brother, my friend, my cousin, someone who can relate. And that goes an awful long way because at the end of the day, let's face it, you want someone that you can relate to. You want someone who can understand your background. And so I have experienced this time and time again, whether it's at the VA, whether it's been at previous agencies, when I encounter a Black man who's in need of help or support or services from me. Um, they have shared many of stories with me about working with other individuals of other races and cultures and that sort of thing. And let me just say for the record that there are an awful lot of great mental health professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, LCSWs, LPCs who do great work with all races. But there's nothing like having a provider who who looks like you, who can understand you. If I'm talking a certain way, that provider can understand exactly what I'm saying because he represents the culture, the community that I come from. And so I take pride in that, knowing that I have an opportunity to make that gentleman feel a little bit better, knowing that, okay, I'm here to help you. Not only that, but I'm also here to try to relate to you as well, work through some of those more deeper issues that I can understand because I too am a Black man.
So with a lot of those the men that you met with, are these gentlemen, do they are they seeking out this type of service, or is it something where, you know, in your profession they're assigned to have to work through that type of those type of sessions? Is it something, what's the mix there like as far as
Yeah.
people?
Well, I think unfortunately, over the years, for one, there have been a lot of us in the profession. That's number one. Number two, a lot of people in our communities, a lot of Black men have either been mislabeled, they have been misunderstood, they have been marginalized in some ways as well. And then the other piece is, as a Black man, I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to be tough. I'm supposed to take on these issues, and I'm not supposed to cry and break down and be vulnerable and talk about what's going on with me because that's a sign of weakness. But at the end of the day, we have every right to say, you know what? I need help too. You know what? I'm depressed. You know what? I have a stuck point in my head and I don't know how to process it. I don't know how to get from here to there. And I'm having to really in some ways assist some guys in some reprogramming in their head about what this process can be for them, not necessarily what it is. It and the beauty of it is working with an individual. I can't, let's say, work with you, Nick. My approaches with you can't be identical with another gentleman because I have to meet him where he is in the moment at that time. And then walk with him every step of the way and knock down any myths or misunderstandings that he may have about mental health and what it's about and what it can do to assist them. And there's some guys as well who also appreciates this type of work as well, because again, a lot of them have never encountered seeing not so much a Black man, but even a Black woman as well. There's some advantages there also. We are talking about culture, but so it has been challenging with some, but once we're able to get over those challenges, we can do some great work. And I've seen a lot of Black men just grow and heal and develop wellness toolboxes that you just would not believe. Although it's challenging, I feel like every other Black man that I meet over time, I'm able to assist and support. I'm doing something great for our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you doing that. I think I'll say it here. I think
Mhm.
that the work that you do on a daily basis across the board is such a valuable asset to the world. I think your type of positions like teachers and things like that, that a lot of times they get so overlooked for the impact that they're making in our culture, in our society. So I definitely appreciate you for that.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking, as you said, you began working with guys and having to get over some of a lot of those myths, some of a lot of those barriers. I wonder if you could talk to me about what you've experienced specifically for Black men that you've worked with on where some of those myths and barriers can come from. There's a lot of things I feel like that are like, "Ah, I don't want to talk to another brother because if I open up and I deal with this and that and I start talking about this, they're going to look." There's all these things going on in our head. But I feel like for the most part, if a lot of us are dealing with it, it has to be coming from something that is common to all of us. So what are like a few things that you may have seen that have caused those myths for us as men to get help?
I think one definitely pops up in my head right now. And let me just say, I am a Christian man. I am a member of a church. I do ministry work in a church. So I just want to be transparent in that regard. But having said that, one of the things that I have witnessed or have heard or even experienced to a certain degree is a lot of people who are Christians, who are members of a church, their remedy when it comes to someone who is having some mental health issues, mental illness, they're depressed, this, that, and the third, you pray.
Mhm.
Pray to God that everything will work out. You pray to God that these issues will resolve themselves and they'll just go away and it's going to be all good. Now, yes, by all means, if you are a Christian and you believe in the power of prayer, by all means, engage in that. But at the same time, this type of work requires some actual work. It requires some engaging and it takes time. And I think one of the things that we get stuck on is we want quick fixes. And we're now in a society where we want things to get better real quick. They got things to do, places to go, but we're stuck with our challenges. We're stuck with our setbacks. And we have to learn to give ourselves some time, not so much be patient, because we want to try to get through these challenges as soon as we can. But we have to devote the amount of time that is required in order to really address your wellness and be able to address some of these challenges that one is facing. Church, it's like you come to church, you pay your tithes, you pay your offerings, you go to the altar, have the pastor pray for you, and it's done. And in some instances, yes, it is done. But the Bible also says faith without works is dead. And so I want to say to people out there that we cannot simply, as a mental health professional, I have to say, we cannot simply say that prayer alone is enough. Because if, for example, if someone goes to church and they're told, okay, go to church, join, do this and do that, whatever problems you have, pray to God, they're going to be fine. They pray, they try to live their life. These issues and problems either persist or they get worse. And all of a sudden they're discouraged all over again. So it becomes cyclical, or either that individual becomes stuck because there's no processing going on. There's no engagement in terms of being able to speak out what the issues are. Can you articulate some of the things that may make you feel depressed? What happened during the course of the week that may have caused you to want to commit suicide, for example? Those types of questions have to be asked. There has to be some ongoing probing going on in order to get to the root of the issue. Yet, I think the Black church, while it's been such a very instrumental part of our culture, I think, and thankfully, churches are starting to embrace the work. A lot of them are having groups and sessions, and a lot of pastors are now doing counseling as well. So I'm glad that the work is being, in some ways, brought into the church. More of it needs to be done so that it can further downplay that myth that just praying the problems away is good enough.
Mm. I'm really glad that you said that, because I've been a pastor. I've been in that role before. And I've had folks that have come into the church that were dealing with mental health challenges. I've had folks that have come in that have bipolar disorder and
Right.
anxiety disorders. And honestly, man, I got to be honest, being in that position as a pastor and sitting down with someone and they're telling me these issues, I was like, I don't even know what to do, what to
What?
say. And my only option really was like, all right, let's pray about this. I don't know what to tell you, but we'll pray about it. My intent was good. You know what I'm saying? Like, my intention there, obviously, to help them was good. But what you're saying, though, is there's more work that needs to be done just after prayer. You know what I'm saying? And for a lot of us as Black men, we grow up in a culture where church, for a lot of us, is very, very inclusive in our environment, very inclusive in our experience growing up. And you're right. In those, a lot of times, man, we're not hearing those conversations about how important it is.
Yeah.
So to take it a step further, because there was a word that you kept bringing up that stuck out to me, and it was this word of engagement, right? Engagement. As far as, let's say, me as a man, right? You're saying engage. One of the challenges that I feel like I have is, if I were to come to you and ask for some help, you're going to engage me. You're going to ask me these questions. You're going to get deep. You're going to get right. You're going to get really involved. And so, how do I, as a man, knowing that you're going to, like, say, if I'm going into this, I'm knowing that you're going to engage me in this way, how can I prepare myself mentally going into it so that I won't be as defensive or on guard when you do start engaging me? How can I start to prepare myself if I'm a man going into that kind of experience?
That's a good question. And I think for you, or any man for that matter, going in, okay, I'm getting ready to engage with this mental health professional,
Mhm.
and he looks like me. So I don't know what to expect. And so I would say, be prepared to meet someone who's going to make every conscious effort to meet you where you are in the moment because it's your time. It's my time. Yes, because it's my session and you've been invited to come to present whatever that's going on with you. But as a provider, I can't necessarily set the agenda. I can at best partner with you because this is about you. And I'm not going to push you any faster than you want to go. Because what my thing is, if we're going to engage, and when I say engage, I'm talking about, we're going to have several series of sessions over a period of time, however long we have to meet it until we both feel collectively, okay, we have, as far as the goals, we have where I'm looking for. We met the goals. We have met the objectives, but I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to know that you can say, if you need to cuss, if you need to cry, if you need to grab a pillow on my couch over there and just yell in it, you can do that. If you want to just sit in my office for about 20 minutes and just get your thoughts together, that's fine too. Again, I can't set the agenda all by myself. And I know that first meeting is critical. And I have met with clients in the past where I'll do all that I can to make him or her feel comfortable. But at the end of the day, they got to make it up in their minds whether they're going to come back to it for a second session. And so I have to do the work by way of giving him the time, giving him the space, giving him the permission to do whatever it is he needs to do to feel comfortable. Even if it means you interviewing me, asking me questions. Hey, DJ, where are you from?
Mhm.
You have a Southern dialect. Are you from Eastern North Carolina? Whatever it takes to establish that rapport so that they can know and understand, yes, I'm a mental health professional, but I'm also a human being. We may have some things in common as well. And so building or establishing or building that rapport is so vitally important. I'm going to do everything I can to make you laugh if necessary. I have a dry sense of humor, but I do what I can
Mhm.
to make him feel comfortable. If he's walking in the door wearing a UNC, sure. Oh, you're a fan. So, and so we could talk about anything and everything under the sun that we can relate to. That's going to help calm him down, help him realize, you know what? This may not be as bad as I thought because he's a Tar Heel fan, or I wear glasses, so does he. Those little things really and truly matter. And and per my skill set, I'm able to in some way segue into, okay, yeah, we're making this about you. This is about you. And it does help quite a bit. It doesn't help all the time, but the goal for me is to make you feel comfortable. This is just me and you. There's no one else in the room, no tape recorders or anything like that. Everything is confidential. I'm not going to go out this office and talk to my colleague about some very deep things that you share with me. I have to make that abundantly clear to you on the outset that anything and everything that you disclose will remain in this room. Now, having said that, if you say, oh, DJ, I don't know if I'm, man, I got this gun in my car. Now, that's where there's an exception. It
You
has
got to disclose that. Yeah.
right. Exactly. Exactly. And I have to say that. But at the end of the day, making it clear that they are safe with me. They and their secrets, their problems, things that they say about other people that they may not disclose to others. That is vitally important to establishing rapport so that when he comes back for a second and third and fourth and fifth session, he'll feel more comfortable sharing more, processing more so that we as a partnership can really delve into some of these problems that he's facing.
Okay. So the first thing that I am gathering just from what you just said is our perspective and our approach going into it should be the perspective of a partnership, right? We're partnering together, and that's like the first time I've really heard it
Mhm.
in those terms. Because when you look at it from that point of view, you realize, okay, you DJ as my counselor, as a professional, are really trying to work with me. One of the things that I think, and maybe you can answer this, is do you think that sometimes where the resistance can come from is that a lot of men, and instead of us looking at it as a partnership, we can be looking at it as like you're this authority, you're this person over me, and you're like pointing out all my things that I have wrong. Do you feel like a lot of men struggle with that when they do
Yeah,
come in those counseling
yeah.
sessions?
I'm part of the system. I'm
Yeah.
an authority figure. I may be the only Black person in the office. So he probably acts just like them.
Mm.
And so it's easy to make those assumptions about me and also take into account what they may have witnessed or experienced in the past as well. And despite the fact that I'm a Black man who happens to be an LCSW, who happens to be a mental health professional, I'm still one of them. I'm a part of them. And I have to sometimes have to fight through that with, you're going to say veterans, because that's who I currently work with,
Yeah, yeah.
but with clients. And I have to remind them that at the end of the day, first and foremost, I'm independently licensed in social work. I'm that before I'm an employee of the VA. I'm an independently licensed clinical social worker who happens to work at this mental health agency. And so I have to let them know that I am who I am. Yes, I'm affiliated with this entity, but at the end of the day, I have to, in some ways, personalize myself, not to the point where we're becoming bosom buddies and all of that. That's not appropriate, of course. That will certainly defeat the purpose, but definitely humanize the experience. And I have to, in some ways, and what has been helpful for me also in trying to win over some clients is do what we call self-disclosure. And so depending on what's put on the table by the client, if it's a life experience that's similar to something that either I may have experienced or someone that I know experienced, then I can in some ways disclose about 2 years ago, I had a similar situation to occur. And this is how I managed it. This is how I responded, that sort of, to let them know you're not alone. Yes, I have the clinical license, the clinical experience, all this education, but I have problems too. I have challenges as well, just like a medical doctor. Medical doctors are in the business of making people feel better. But guess what? Medical doctors get sick too.
Yeah.
They sometimes need surgeries and that sort of thing. And so for me, it is an awesome opportunity to use myself as an example or use a situation that someone else has experienced as an example of how we can address this matter. Not to say that it's going to be the exact same process, but to say that, again, you're not in this thing alone. Even though you're coming to see me, trust me, this situation, I've either worked with it before with another client, or I may have experienced it myself, or it may have been a case that I may have read in the past of a real life experience. And I can bring that information, that real life information, into this session in hopes that they can say, okay, all right, I can work through this. And that's one of the things that I can do at times when I feel like it's appropriate. Everyone has their flaws. We're all imperfect. And so I use the strength that I gained from that experience as well as other life experiences to try to be tough, quote unquote, or at least be in the moment for other people who are down on their luck, who are depressed, who are anxious, who are lost, who is losing hope in life. And I'm able, not only based on my professional experience, but my life experience, I'm able to give something that's very powerful and valuable to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so interesting that you mentioned, I appreciate you sharing that too,
Yes.
is the impact that our fathers make in our lives is the more and more like I'm having a lot of these conversations, the more and more, especially when it comes to conversations with men,
Yeah.
somewhere in that conversation, there is going to be this dynamic of our fathers woven into it somehow.
Hmm.
And I think even when you think about what we were speaking about earlier with the challenge of sometimes us as men reaching out for support, it's almost if I'm sitting across from another man, this dynamic of a father son dynamic. And if that relationship wasn't really there the way that I needed it to be, it's going to end up playing out and affecting and impacting me when I'm going through this process. So it's, man, it plays such a huge part, man.
Oh,
It plays such a huge part.
absolutely.
So now I want to ask you this because now you're obviously a father now, and I know I'm on that father thing, but experiencing that and experiencing that dynamic between you and your father, how did that change how you now as a father are parenting your son?
Oh, great question. My son, bright kid, funny kid, smart kid. My wife and I, we worked hard to become parents. There were some fertility challenges that we had to endure in the beginning, and we were at a place where we were like, you know what, this may not happen. And all the different types of interventions that we had done, it was very mentally draining, expensive, and time consuming. And so when we told our fertility doctor that we were just going to take a mental break and we're going to live our lives, work, and enjoy each other, and we'll revisit this later. It was no time frame. And so when all of that stopped, a month later, Kareem was pregnant
Oh, wow.
without any type of intervention or anything like that. So uber excited and very excited when I found out it was going to be a boy. And
Hmm.
so the kind of name that I had, I was like, it's got to be the Kevius Jarrell X Jr.
Yeah.
And that he is. And 13 years, man, just full of joy. He is my heart. He is my life. He is a high functioning autistic child, but I thank God that he's still independent. He's able to articulate his thoughts, his feelings, and that sort of thing. We know that the autism spectrum, there are varying degrees of what that looks like. But fortunately, with his being high functioning, there are some challenges, but at the end of the day, nothing that we can't handle. So having a son and my experience growing up, I feel that it is important to be present. What I mean by that is listen, even when he knows that even when he thinks that I'm not listening. That makes sense. In other words, some of the conversations that he's having with other people, or if he's in his room and he's engaging with someone on the computer, because I want to know what he's thinking. I want to know what's going on with him so that if anything is going on with him, I can somewhat quickly understand where he's coming from because I'm present, I'm listening, I'm trying to engage. And I find myself even sometimes just like randomly, if I see him in the house, hey, what's up, AJ? Hey, Dad, how you doing? I'm good. Oh, okay, just wanted to check. Because there are times when I do that and his response may prompt me to ask some follow-up questions
Mhm.
because he may sound down, upset. Okay, what's up? What's going on? And I think that's important because I want him to always know that I care and that I know that something is going on with you more than you think. I know you more than you know yourself. So I'm engaged, I'm active when it comes to things at his school. In elementary school, Karima and I were those parents. We're part of PTA. Every event that they had, we were there. We did some volunteer work. And so we wanted AJ to know and to see that, yeah, man, we care so much about you. We want to do our part to make sure that your school is functioning properly. Because at the end of the day, you're reaping the benefits from that as a student. So I know it's a long answer, but yeah, just being present in his life as much as possible. Probably too present, but for me, he's my only child. I got to get it right the first time because that would be the only time.
Yeah, that's true. I appreciate you mentioning that. I think as fathers, I think I tweeted something the other day. I said, a paycheck will never replace my presence. I think a lot of times you even mentioned it in this conversation is the generation that raised a lot of us as men.
Yeah.
We're very stoic. Now, I don't mean I read a lot about stoicism, and I don't mean stoic in that sense, but like very just stone walled, not sharing a lot of emotions.
Right.
I had a episode I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said to him, I only see my dad cry 2 or 3 times in my life. And when it comes to men talking about emotions, checking in on their sons, hey son, how are you doing? Like we need to talk about what is going on in your mind and in your heart so that I can help you and guide you. I think that's super important.
Oh, indeed.
Wow, you rested. We need that. We need that, especially in this
Yeah.
generation. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely this generation.
Men are emotional too. Whether whether you want to embrace that or not, we are emotional. We are made to cry
Yeah.
and to be heartbroken, as well as being mad and stoic and all of that. But it is very important for us to be allowed to cope and to process. And it shouldn't matter what that looks like at all because we're human beings. If we don't allow ourselves to be emotional, then these feelings that we have inside of us that needs to come out, that needs to be processed, once they're suppressed, they're still in there. But guess what? It's going to come out one way or the other. And the goal is to ensure that it comes out in the most healthiest manner possible. Because what we don't want is for this to be manifest in such a negative way that it affects our health, it affects our families, it affects our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. We've talked about and we've really covered a lot of that. And I appreciate you giving some insight to the approach of learning how to find support in professionals. And so we really covered looking at that and understanding the perspective of looking at it as a partnership as opposed to this authority thing. So, what would you say if I'm a man, I'm there, I know that I'm at a point, I'm at a place where I need help, right? I need help. I need to figure out how to find some support, but I'm not at the point where I'm comfortable enough to sit down with a professional. Maybe I'm one of those kind of self-starting type of individuals. What would you say are maybe 1 or 2 things that I could probably use in my toolkit to learn how to start supporting myself until I'm ready to reach out to professionals and stuff like that? What would be like one or two things that could help?
Good question. I think for starters, and there's so much, there really is. We don't realize that help is all around us.
Hmm.
And so if we get to a place where we first we have to acknowledge, okay, I'm not in a good place right. That's number one. You have to acknowledge that something is not right. I don't feel good. I'm mad. I'm upset. I'm depressed. I'm confused. I'm lost. That acknowledgement has to take place first and foremost. And then most of us come from have families. Um, there's that favorite auntie, that favorite uncle. You're very close with a neighbor, a colleague, your supervisor, your pastor at church, a deacon at the church, if you don't want to talk to the pastor necessarily, and just say, hey, can we talk? I'm not in a good place right now and I need some help. And so you have to be willing to go to someone who you trust, someone you already have a strong rapport with, someone who you know that if you tell them something, it's going to stay with them. And that trust factor, it is so huge because unfortunately, and again, that's another reason why a lot of us do not do this because trust, there are trust issues. They probably revealed something to someone, to somebody, and that person unfortunately told somebody who told somebody, and it got right back to that person that shared.
Mhm.
And so it's very hard to pull someone like him back into that circle, whether they're with a professional or whether they want to try to allow themselves to be vulnerable again and bring themselves to that point where they have to admit that something is going on and I need some help. I can't do this by myself. And so I think doing that also, and depending on the community that you're in, of course, if you live in a rural area, unfortunately, like here in North Carolina, I live in Raleigh, second largest city in the state, part of the triangle, a plethora of not only mental health professionals, but also entities, the organizations that provide community resources around different groups that are specific to certain things, like a men's depression group, for example, a smoking cessation group, single dads groups, things of that nature. There's some groups that may be specific to certain things that may be something that you could fall in line with. And oftentimes they're not necessarily led by professionals, mental health professionals, I should say. And that's usually a start because a lot of times these groups are pretty much ran by the participants. So
Awesome.
you already engaged with people who are essentially on your level, who may be at varying degrees of the process, but at the same time, you're in the same group and same room with people who probably look like you. They don't have a lot of alphabets behind their names, but you're still able to articulate what's going on with you. You're still able to be comfortable. And that goes an awful long way. And so I encourage people, especially if there are challenges around affordability, that these self-help groups are a great way to start your wellness journey.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good. That is really good. I appreciate that. That's a good way to definitely a good way to start with where you're at and diving into it. So DJ, I want to thank you again just for your time and just for being able to spend some moments with us and share some insight. Man, I got some notes here that can be helpful. And I want to appreciate you for just sharing that knowledge and the experience that you've had. As we're signing off, is there anywhere that people can find out a way to connect with you and what you're doing and stuff like that? What's the best way for us to reach out?
Yeah, I can certainly share my email address, and it's my full name. So I'm going to have to spell that out, and I'll do it slowly. It's Dekevius_J_Atkinson at yahoo.com. DEKEVIS_ATKINSON at yahoo.com. Please reach out if you have questions, if you need resources, if you need referrals, that sort of thing. I help people from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. That's just what I do. And I feel like it's a service as well that I provide to people, um, as a mental health professional, as being someone from the helping professional, even if it's just a matter of linking you to someone that I know can help you best. I feel like I've done a great service.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll make sure I can put that down below too so people can tap into it. So, like I said, man, I definitely want to appreciate your time. This has been Nick with the Life Recreated podcast. We're continuing to recreate this narrative around Black men and their mental wellness. Do me a favor if you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to it, if you can just drop down below, man, give us a follow, leave a review, give us some feedback on if these conversations are helpful for you, and if there's anything that we can touch on that maybe we can approach and get a better understanding of, want to be able to do that. So until next time, this has been Nick. Keep learning, keep healing, and keep growing. Peace.